Welcome, Climate Viewers. My name is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at climateviewer.com, climateviewer.org, and weathermodificationhistory.com. It's January 28th, 2018, and I've been having fun with the trolls on Twitter, and I just couldn't help it, man. I'm going to do something kind of spur of a moment, spontaneous like, and we're going to try to do the entire chemtrail story in one video very quickly. Buckle your seatbelts and set your tray tables and seats to lulls. This is going to be a bumpy ride. So, as many of you know, I just got back from Austin, Texas at the Weather Modification Conference. And wow, this happens to be from the National Weather Service in Austin. What a coincidence. On Twitter, this tweet was November 19th, 2017, and it says, the thin cirrus clouds around today made of ice crystals are causing there to be a halo around the sun at our National Weather Service San Antonio office. The ice crystals reflect and refract the light, causing the halo effect. Bunch of chemtrails. Chemtrails. So, I'm hearing somebody in chat saying no sound on my end. Everybody else hearing me just fine, right? Continuing along. So here's where it gets interesting. So this little thread developed pretty quickly, and I, of course, had to jump right in the middle of it because it's always fun. Robert Smith, I'm not a meteorologist. Let's give him a little shout out there. Thanks for joining this party. I am not a meteorologist, but I can tell you those are man-made clouds. I watched them develop. Bravo. Loving that. See how simply his language, simple as language is. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Made by jet planes. Fuel plus oxygen equal water plus CO2 makes clouds. This is the derpatologist, aka Ernope, aka debunking idiot, who I've been harassing for quite some time and likewise been harassed by. He says, and water doesn't require heat to make clouds. Water condenses when it gets colder, blah, blah, blah. And this person's like, oh my God, just go out and look at this shit, you know, and the usual goes on here. Those are contrails, ice crystals. See the 22 blah, 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 blah around the sun? Yeah, justclouds.com link. Pretty cool. Derpatologist. Contrails are pretty much the opposite of cloud seeding. That is 150% incorrect. Contrails are by definition cloud seeding because exhaust particulates coming from jet engines are cloud seeds or cloud condensation nuclei. Therefore, chemtrails and contrails have more to do with cloud seeding than anything else. And then Robert Smith, my dog, said, Jim Lee is doing most excellent research on the research and activism on the subject, recommends videos on the history of geoengineering, ionospheric heaters, etc. Loved it. So then here comes that old hat. Now we're going to deal with this today. Just so you guys may, some of you have probably already seen this. You already know the story. And I am still kind of nursing my pneumonia, but I feel much better today. I got my map posted last night. Really put a pep in my step. And my wife takes such good care of me. Anyway, Jim Lee doesn't believe in chemtrails. He is just soliciting for donations from chemies. He had about $8,000 from gullible folk last I checked. And he's referring, of course, to the GoFundMe that I did to go to the conference to make a film. Cute. Let's go back. So, wow. So you know what he believes. I'm done with all this. All you do is insult, have a good life, enjoy your safe bubble. Now, that's typical. What they usually will do is immediately question your motives. Now, any of you guys who know me, and most of you do, 7 years now, I've done 2 GoFundMes, one to go to the EPA hearing and one to go to this weather modification conference in Austin. That's hardly me bumming all day, every day. Did it once in 2015, once in 2017. So out comes Take That Clouds, another fake account troll Twitter. We'll keep the language friendly on this one. And he says, Jim is on record as saying he doesn't believe in chemtrails and is just punking chemtards. Now, I want everybody to take their time to read this. I'm going to read it to you. I did say this. When I said this, I was in a Kaku thread. Kaku is Chemtrails Are Killing Us. It's a troll group. And I went there the day before I went to the EPA hearing in Washington, D.C. And the reason I did this was very simple. I wrote a speech that I'm going to give in front of the EPA on C-SPAN. So what I did was I went to Kaku and Metabunk same time, and I posted my speech on both of them. And what I did was I said to myself, if you believe this so strongly that you're going to go do it in front of the C-SPAN, on front of the EPA, and it's going to be part of the congressional record for history, you might want to be sure. So what I did was I took my speech before I gave it, and I posted it on the 2 worst chemtrail debunking sites there are. And I said, come on. And guess what happened? Neither Metabunk nor Kaku could debunk one effing line in my speech. At which point, of course, you all know how these things go. It got highly personal. It went here, it went there, it went everywhere. And I didn't care because you know what? If you guys really could debunk, you would have. You didn't. I win. So to recap, I don't believe chemtrails are killing us, because that's the group I was in. Chemtrails Are Killing Us, Kaku, group of gang stalking cyber criminals. And I got money from a chemtrail believers to go to a hearing about aviation CO2, referring to the GoFundMe I did in 2015 for $2,000 to go to Washington, D.C. At best, I'm turning lunatics into activists. Or, at worst, I'm better at punking chemtards than you. At best, I'm turning lunatics into activists or they quit. Ask Dominique from chemchasers.com. So to be very clear, what I am saying there is this. I'm in a Chemtrails Are Killing Us freaking debunker group. And they're calling me all these things. They couldn't debunk anything I was saying. And we're left with, hey, I talked to a guy the other day who chemchasers.com, and I just gave him the facts, not trying to do any kind of, nefarious stuff. Guy had questions, I answered them. And he's like, I'm going to call you tomorrow. I got a lot to process. And when I called him the next day, he was like, dude, I deleted everything. I was like, what? So for me personally, that's the first and only time that I know of that I talked to somebody who was a chemtrail believer and they literally quit. So of course I mentioned that. And the point of that is, if you guys are so damned and determined to put an end to the chemtrail conspiracy, then maybe you should try some facts instead of just saying it's water vapor all damn day. But whatever. They right over their heads. Whew. Deleted his whole website and Facebook page after a 3-hour phone call with me. So you don't know anything about me. Chill out. Now they post this photo everywhere as often as they can. What do you mean no data for earthquakes on ClimateViewer? Are the feeds down? The feeds are not down. What are you talking about? Seriously? The feeds for the earthquakes are right here, dude. Don't get me sidetracked. Right here. Click that. Boom. There's earthquakes. See? Earthquakes. Sheesh, man. Aliens. Anyway, so yes, I did say that. Yes, you now know the context. And the general idea is this, guys. I got played by a bunch of chemtrail websites telling me X, Y, and Z. And when I looked into the actual story following the money, I came to the conclusions that I am about to show you in this video. I think that you will agree with me that these are sane conclusions based on logic, reason, and cash. So, I do turn chemtrail believers into climate change activists because nobody else does. And I do it better than anyone. So, and I say back to this guy, and this matters why. I'm a historian. Weathermodificationhistory.com. I teach people about weather modification, HARP, and geoengineering. Grow up. And this is where the education begins. No magnitude data. The magnitude data is in there, dude. Jesus, do I have to do this again? You're not paying attention. Sure, you go, earthquakes, you click here, and the magnitude data is right there, M7.9. Magnitude, 7.9 earthquake. Dude, you got to be able to read this stuff. My man, seriously. It's there. It's all in there. Don't want to get sued, but it's in there. So take that clouds as like, but those three topics are unrelated. And this is something I commonly get and is freaking hilarious to me. The only link between those three are commonly focused on by gullible chemtrail believers who might give you money. Coincidence? So this dude immediately goes right back to what this dumbass says, and it's me just doing this for money. Of course, there's no ads on my website. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But whatever. So, of course, he says that. I said, actually, they are intimately related. And by what we're talking about, weather modification, HARP, and geoengineering, stay on. And this is class, guys. You're not going to get this anywhere else. I am your teacher. The reason they're related, just because you're an uneducated fool with nothing but time on his hands to troll people who clearly are smarter than yourself doesn't make you right. It makes you a dumbass. HARP equal space weather modification. That's a link. Geoengineering equal global weather modification. So they are related. The relationship between geoengineering, HARP, and weather modification is that all three modify weather of some sort. So, of course, out of the shadows creeps Mick West. Ooh. Contrailscience.com, metabunk.org. And he says, what's the downwards coupling? And you see, this is an attempt to detract from all of the glory, which I just imparted on Twitter, to which I responded to his question, what's the downward coupling? You under me. That's the downward coupling. LOL. Oh, burn. Appreciate you, Mick. Appreciate you. So Mick shut the hell up and didn't say another word. Because he knows his place, and I've handled Mick West many years ago. Mick will never, ever agree to debate me. And he's smart for that. Dermatologist, you're such a serious researcher, Jim. When asked a serious question about your supposed area of expertise, you just resort to insults. You're not fooling anyone. That's funny. That's comedy. I'm sorry. Mick is an idiot. He comes with some off-topic science question unrelated to what the conversation is. Of course, I'm going to treat him like my bitch because he is. Better. He knows better. That's why he didn't even respond. He knew he was off-topic. So here's where the education begins, people. And let's really get detailed because I want you guys to understand this. And this is going to be fun. Chemtrails are part of the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. Present and past. I suppose you will ignore the possibility that history could repeat itself, surely. So here's where we're going to get into details. Pause for a moment while I catch my breath. Alrighty then. So now we're on to, what are we going to do first? Past or present? Past or present? I say we go with past and then we'll bring it up to today. So I'm going to pull this one onto the screen. It was a conspiracy, military experiments on unsuspecting public. I posted this on November 17th, 2013. Wait a freaking minute. Is that a numerical coincidence? Is that a numerical coincidence? November 19th, 2017. I knew there was a November and a 17 in there, but that's 2 days off. Pretty cool. Anyway, November 17th, 2013. And this is about the past. Now, warfare and defoliation, Operation Popeye. You guys can read all about that. Going to skip that. Operation Ranch Hand, Trail Dust. That's the Agent Orange, or all of the agents. They dumped 19 million gallons of those agents, herbicides, on Vietnam. Meanwhile, they were doing weather modification overhead with lead iodide. Everybody knows about silver iodide. Nobody talks about the lead that the CIA, Henry Kissinger, the U.S. Air Force were spraying overhead in Operation Popeye. Lead freaking iodide. Bug warfare, entomological warfare, Operation Big Itch, Big Buzz, Mayday, Dropkick. These are Savannah, Georgia dropped 600,000 mosquitoes by plane. Savannah, Georgia dropped yellow fever mosquitoes in an urban area. E-14 bombs, got pictures of that stuff. 330,000 uninfected mosquitoes, uninfected my bowels. Here's some FOIAs on that. Radioactive release. This video right here. You guys have got to watch it. And what I most importantly want you to watch is right about here. Because
these are some of the grown children exposed to zinc cadmium sulfide, now in their 60s. I remember the soul.
These are the poor black people that were sprayed by the U.S. Army Chemical Corps with zinc cadmium sulfide. And despite what these fools were saying over here about how it was just a test and it's not even, nobody was hurt, that is a lie. So in this little picture right here, you can see the actual tests. It's also at the very top of the page. Come up here. And this is from Lisa Martino Taylor. I pulled this from the PDF and colored it for effect. But this green cloud is basically a chemical release by the U.S. Army Chemical Corps, zinc cadmium sulfide, and that is a school, Clinton School. And the poor black people that lived there, went to school there, after they died posthumously, they ground up their thyroids and such to find out how much of this was in their bodies. So this was a very long project, from poisoning that population of poor black people to, you know, cutting them up later. And the quote of the century is this: through this case study, the author explores how a large number of participants inside an organization will willingly participate in organizational acts that are harmful to others, and how large numbers of outsiders who may or may not be victims of organizational activities are unable to determine illegal or harmful activity by an organization. This is called compartmentalization. This is part of the Manhattan-Rochester Coalition, a spinoff of the Manhattan Project. And everybody knows how you were making metal tubes, not nuclear bombs. That's how chemtrails works. Compartmentalization. So if you don't know the past, you won't know what to do about the future. And these are some of the only footage I've been able to find of testimony of actual victims of this program.
The secret testing. They isolated me, and I stayed there about a month.
It's bad. Lost her fingernails, her toenails, all kinds of stuff. So super not cool. Operation Large Area Coverage, 57 to 58, U.S. Army Chemical Corps, C-119 flying boxcar sprayed it from coast to coast, California to the freaking East Coast. That is a chemtrail dispersal by plane across America. Everybody got some. So my father was born in 1950. He would have been about 7 to 8 years old when he got sprayed. Just food for thought. And the list goes on. I actually found the entire list of those sprayings, and you can see North Carolina, South Carolina, Corpus Christi, Texas. Oh, there's St. Louis, 63 to 65. 984 kilograms of zinc cadmium sulfide just in St. Louis alone. And you can see on some of these, approximate square miles that they sprayed it. Less than 100,000. Well, appreciate that. That's very crazy. List goes on up and down this thing of amounts and where they were dispersed. And you can watch a video on that. So that's the past. Happened. Sprayed radioactive material on the country. Went and ground up bodies to find out what happened to them. So then we get to chemtrails, cometives, and terrorism. And this is about modern chemtrails, because most people don't seem to believe this is a thing. Got a little thing about fuel dumping right there. Fuel dumping. Fuel is filled with cancer-causing chemicals. When dumped in raw format, will poison you. In fact, there was lawsuits in Fallon, Nevada over JP8 and fuel dumps. They had to raise the minimum fuel dump safety level so that hopefully it would evaporate before it got to the ground. But you know what? That crap still happens. So what we're really talking about today is chemical weapons. Now, everybody hears about chemical weapons, but it's always overseas in the Middle East and all that kind of crap. They don't talk about the possibility of it happening domestically. So after 9/11, the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate had a slide called Narco Airways. And what they said was basically, hey, we could use some non-lethal technologies to knock everybody out in the cab, like an incapacitate agent generator, injectable pharmaceuticals, smoke generator, net that drops on the cab of the plane. But the most important one being incapacitate agent generator, or a calmative. Now, if you've never heard of a calmative, they can be things like the gay bomb. Ooh. That's a real thing. Was tested at the Dugaway Proving Ground. Guess who did it? U.S. Army Chemical Corps. So the past repeats itself. It never really stops. If you think that the United States is not making chemical weapons, you're crazy. And then by extension, that means that so is China and Russia and all the other big boys. So chemical weapons are a thing. They can be deployed from the air. There is very little to no defense against that. Chemtrails. Making gay people. So what does the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate look like? Because it's kind of freaky to me. Maybe you've never even heard of it. Well, I went to a place called the sunshineproject.org, which has been deleted from the internet. Got it from the Wayback Machine. And this is what we end up with. U.S. Army TACOM, M2 Technologies, Applied Research Laboratory, U.S. Department of Justice over here sponsors that. Department of Energy, Oak Ridge, Department of Energy, Los Alamos, Armatech Defense Products, Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate in Quantico, Virginia, run by the U.S. Marine Corps. Boom, boom, boom. And, of course, the U.S. Army Research Lab, Aberdeen, Maryland. And then all the way out here to the General Dynamics Primex aerosol generating payload canister for 81 millimeter chemical mortar rounds. Non-lethal 81 millimeter chemical mortar rounds. These are for the OICW, or the Objective Individual Combat Weapon. Chemical weapons delivered by grenades. So you think they can't deliver them by planes? You're crazy. So what do they look like? Oh my God, they're everywhere. This is just a horrible image. I'm just going to show you the image. Won't go into the thing, but these are the biosafety labs from around America. Anybody steals anything from any one of those places, and suddenly we got a big problem. And by the way, this is just America. This isn't Russia, China, and all the other places that have these. That's a lot of damn chemtrail possibilities. High containment labs and other facilities of the U.S. Biodefense Program. Pause for a moment while you let that sink in and look at the freaking legend. So that definitely chemtrails from today. Here's one very specific. Agent Green. Biological weapons are being developed to kill illicit crops of coca, opium, poppy, and other cannabis as forest crop eradication programs. Pathogenic fungi were developed principally by the U.S. in a narcotics producing area globally, but especially Asia and South America. The agents threaten to legitimize agriculture biowarfare, are environmentally unsafe, and threaten wild plants and agriculture in fragile and biodiverse ecosystems. They also endanger human health, most importantly, the global ban on biological weapons. Yet, the United States still is using something called fuminosin or F-oxysporum, also known as Agent Green, to kill cocaine plants in Colombia, South America. The problem with that is it has come home to roost. Chronology of mycoherbicide development against drug plants with special reference to the genus Fusarium and Pleospora. I want you guys to pay very close attention to this mold chemtrail. 1989-90, Texas USA farmers and ranchers report numerous outbreaks of illness among pigs and horses. Tests find fuminosin concentrations in corn-based feed as high as 126 parts per million. The chemtrails we sprayed in Colombia to kill their coca crops made it all the way back to Texas. 1990, Cameron County, Texas, rates of neural tube birth defects begin to rise, primarily driven by increase in anencephaly, which halts brain development. Increase is not noted until a year later, blamed on effect of Fusarium epidemic in corn. U.S. FDA issues draft guidelines for maximum levels of fuminosin allowed in food. In a letter to federal officials, Texas Department of Health worries that that level may be too high for people to consume corn on a dietary staple, especially the Hispanic populations, because they eat a lot of corn tortillas, my man. And apparently that's dangerous. Representative, this is 2002, John Mica brings up the desire to restart the Fusarium mycoherbicide program in the U.S. House hearing titled America's Heroin Crisis, Colombian Heroin and How We Can Improve Plan Colombia. Now, you're not going to get good research like this anywhere. This is the only article I have that I really cover chemtrails today. The real ass versions of it going on. F-oxysporum in infected watermelon, bean fields, cotton, and asters. This is a serious issue for me personally because of things like this. So what I says to these guys on here, past and present, your whole theory seems to be it's possible to spray stuff from planes. Therefore, every lunatic theory about chemtrails must be true. Guess what? It's possible to spray stuff from cars too. Do we arrest people for spraying chemtrails the next time you go for a drive? I said, typical weak argument. Cars don't make clouds that block sunlight. So, since we're going to totally ignore the chemtrail thing that I just totally batted out of the water with some facts, he's going to go to, well, what about cars? This is typical, guys. This is why you have to deal with shit like that. So, Where were we? Back over here. Let's finish this up. And of course, I go back and mention the zinc cadmium sulfide thing. Here's one for you. Microspheres for micro worlds, using nuclear waste for drug delivery and national defense. This is a hollow glass ball made of nuclear waste with a chemical inside of it. And the chemical can be put into jet fuel. And this would allow them to deliver these glass balls into the sky to reflect sunlight, according to at least one article that I was able to find, and some references from Savannah River Nuclear Site, which is right here. Combined effort is expected to do new capabilities like nuclear medicine, nuclear deterrence, and safeguards, and global warming. Quote from Cybercast News Service: the particles, consisting of very fine and special form of glass, porous-walled glass microspheres, would be able to absorb a certain amount of carbon dioxide and would reflect sunlight away from the Earth. The overall goal for this task is to understand and evaluate the implications of deploying porous glasses as an agent to reduce global warming, the DOE work proposal said. This is glass nuclear balls made by Savannah River Nuclear Site, which is in my home state of South Carolina, where they have taken the radiation, condensed it down to a non-radioactive glass porous ball that they can put sulfur dioxide inside of it and then burn it in the jet fuel. And these little glass balls will reflect sunlight. That'd be geoengineering and probably poison millions of people. Regardless, both this article and Savannah River Nuclear Lab's own literature both refer to the global warming part. There was another quote up here. What looks like a fertilized egg flows like water, is stuffed with catalysts and exotic nanostructures, and maybe have the potential of making the current retail gasoline infrastructure compatible with hydrogen-based vehicles of the future, not to mention also contributing to arenas such as nuclear proliferation and global warming. It gets better. In fact, the SNRNL is involved in more than half a dozen programs of collaboration involving our little porous wall glass balls in areas such as abatement of global warming effects. That's 3 references to global warming, one of which specifically talks about putting glass balls in jet fuel to cool the planet. So chemtrails has them. Possibilities endless, protections little to none. Nanotechnology paves way for new weapon systems. Regulating weaponized nanotechnology, how International Criminal Court offers a way forward. Owning the weather in 2025. Well, you didn't read all the side papers. Provide precise control for aerosol dispersal. Allow controlled suspension of airborne particles. Enable weather control over localized areas. Provide precise control for electromagnetic or other field generation with UAV constellations. Drones. This is not in the Owning the Weather paper. I read all the papers, guys. 2025 operational analysis. Also in the Air Force 2025 papers, not in the Owning the Weather 2025 papers. You have to actually read shit to learn shit. So in this one, Operation 2025 operational analysis, attack microbots, sensor microbots. Various deployment approaches are possible, including dispersal as an aerosol, transportation by larger platform, and full flying, crawling autonomy. Robots peeing robots. You definitely heard it. So rogue geoengineering, certainly a possibility. All this stuff has to do with NMOD. That's why I do what I do. Do you really think that's air you're breathing now? Dude, Morpheus was on that stuff. So, killing it over here. Just like bitch slapping trolls, having a great day. And I figured you guys want to play along, learn something here. Maybe you can share this story and understand where I'm coming from. Space fence. I know all about the space fence. In fact, the space fence is up on the screen Roger. Roger. Well, not all the space fence. I can show you the whole space fence, but we'll save that for later. Shout out to Alana Freeland. I'm in her new book, The Space Fence, centerfold. You will see my map. Love that girl. So dude starts talking about serious research into reducing contrails, because like I got into it with him and I'm like, typical weak argument, cars don't block sunlight. That's my concern. I don't want a sunless future. I don't want my daughter to go through that. I like solar energy and I like stars at night. Why does it say starts at night? Damn my phone. Damn my phone. We like stars at night. Of course, your position is nothing to see here. Bullshit. You always lose because you're on the wrong side. Fact. So it says to the guy, he says, actual serious research into reducing contrails, this was needed. Real-time flight planning, avoiding ISSRs, all that stuff. Preaching to the choir, dude. That's what I teach people. I said, I spoke at an EPA hearing on this subject and advocated for just that. Who are you condescending to? Not joking. Check it out. There's me at an EPA hearing. See? That's me at an EPA hearing. Max Bliss, Patrick Roddy, Amanda Bays, Madison Star Moon. Did that. August 11th, 2015. Spoke. C-SPAN. Said exactly what you're saying, in fact. Jesus, man. So I said I spoke there and I said that. Who are you condescending to? I've done something about it and continue to. You fap, troll, bitch, and moan. Shut up. Fun. I love my own tweet. I'm just really puzzled by your whole approach. You say contrails bother you, and yet your whole site is set up like one big collection of chemtrail clickbait. Does anybody really think that? Because my website's got some bomb-ass shit on it, and very little of it is chemtrail clickbait. I mean, what am I baiting for? I don't even have fucking ads on my website. This makes no sense. See, now I said the F word. I'm going to have to demonetize. Who gives a shit? So he says, I'm confused by all that. I mean, any serious scientist looking at it will just file you straight in the tinfoil hat category. It doesn't do you any justice. Only one problem with that. Yet those scientists email me all the time. David Keith, Jim Fleming, Dr. Renaud Director, support my solution to NMOD in writing and intend to lobby the State Department on my behalf. Eat crow. You convince idiots you're right. Good luck convincing me. I mean, seriously, like when David Keith reads my NMOD proposal and says, this is a good idea. Why only 48 hours? I will help you lobby to make this a reality. I mean, I won years ago. I've just been winning constantly and not bragging about differences. I'm going to brag about it now so that everybody understands how to A, deal with trolls, B, win like me. So let's keep doing this. She says, with an audience like you have on your website, you could do so much to fight the chemtrail theory. And yet you continue to court chemtrailers. It's intellectually dishonest. Seems to me you want to have your cake and eat it. Science or chemtrailers, Jim? Choose one. Wait for it. I choose both. Just like that photo y'all post says, I'm turning chemtrail believers into climate change activists every day. One day you'll get it, and I'm very effective. You are not. Try my way. Just tell the truth. Troll douche. It's brilliant, man. It's just brilliant. And then there's some crying from him. I guess there'll be more crying. Here's another troll. Anyway, so let's get back to the facts. So ate that guy's lunch, was hella fun. Shout out to Pam Jones. I'm going to be in her new magazine, Sunless. Going to write a big article about what we're talking about here today in this video. Put it in some plain language, change some hearts and minds. like we do. So what matters? Cirrus clouds matter. Now, I've been trying to get people to, really wrap their heads around the fact that A, everything I just told you is true. B, there is a possibility that something very nefarious could be going on with the clouds overhead. C, there is no protection from that, which is why I propose my NMOD solution, which you can see right here, the Environmental Modification Accountability Act, because I do want a solution to that also. Jimbo don't want to eat no Agent Green. And I certainly don't want nuclear radioactive waste put in a jet tank and sprayed on my head any day. That being said, you still have to be pragmatic about dealing with what's going on. And if you don't know the big story, the full story, then you will be ineffective in acting on it. So what we're going to do now is talk about the flip side to this, which is the highly technical, scientific, climate change, geoengineering side to this, how it works, why it matters, and why it does not take a secret pump or pipe. And I can prove all this in a court of law. So, yeah, you guys all play nice in chat. Pyromania is my peoples, Chinook, Anthony, you cool, Dielectrics, my dog. We all family here. So y'all treat each other like family. So, cirrus clouds matter, and the reason why is because there is a thing now being thrown around called cirrus cloud seeding. How seeded cirrus clouds could cool the climate? That's a lot of C's. So, cirrus clouds reflect some sunlight and absorb long-wave radiation. On balance, they warm the climate. How many people knew that? Honestly. How many people knew that what most people commonly refer to as chemtrails, which are in fact cirrus clouds, despite what anybody's ever told you, it is neither a contrail nor a chemtrail. Once it fans out and it joins all of the rest of the haze of the sky, it is now a cirrus cloud. Period. It ain't a fucking persistent contrail. Persistent contrail is like the second before you can no longer tell it's a contrail. Okay? So quit with that bullshit jargon. Chemtrails and contrails can turn into cirrus clouds. And cirrus clouds matter. And once you understand that, you're halfway there. Cirrus clouds reflect some sunlight, but mostly they warm the climate. Cirrus cloud thinning aims to change the radiative properties of cirrus clouds by reducing their lifetime and the altitude at which they form. Ice nucleating particles. I hate this one. This is something new. These geoengineering assholes like to come up with new terminology so that nobody can follow the history. So an ice nucleating particle, INP, is a cloud condensation nuclei, CCN, is a cloud seed, is a freaking aerosol. These scientists, man, with their freaking jargon. So let's do it one more time. Ice nucleating particle is cloud condensation nuclei, is cloud seed, is an aerosol, all of which can be commonly referred to by every redneck on the planet as dust. Dust is a particle suspended in the air. That's what cloud seed is. That's what an ice nucleating particle is. They're all dusts. Keep it simple, people. So why does this matter? Because, like I said, I went to the CPA hearing and we talked about how these are the two quotes that talk about how bad these cirrus clouds that we're all seeing, how they melt the poles. This is where it comes from. Contrails formed by aircraft can evolve into cirrus clouds indistinguishable from those formed naturally. I'm going to read that one again. Contrails formed by aircraft can evolve into cirrus clouds, indistinguishable from those formed naturally. Meaning, even if there were natural cirrus clouds up there, by the time the plains clouds fan out, you can't tell where nature and man-made, they blend together. These spreading contrails, they put that in hyphens because even the author hates using that damn terminology. These spreading contrails may be causing more climate warming today than all the CO2 emitted by aircraft since the start of aviation. So that's like 60 damn years of flying's worth of CO2 doesn't even touch the effect that cirrus clouds have on the climate. What this tells us is the IPCC is lying through its teeth. While all those globalists fly to Davos and their private jets making cirrus clouds everywhere, the CO2 coming out of the planes is irrelevant. It's the freaking clouds they make on the way there that are most relevant. That's what everybody on the planet's talking about. Yet they tell you to put your freaking tinfoil hat on if you call it a chemtrail because of language, semantics, InfoWars, PSYOPs, perception management, public relations. Public relations being the number one because PR departments at the aviation industry do not want you to talk about cirrus clouds made by planes. They would much prefer you call it geoengineering or chemtrails. Here's the quote of the century. A single aircraft operating in conditions favorable for persistent contrail formation appears to exert a contrail-induced radiative forcing some 5,000 times greater than the recent estimates of the average persistent contrail radiative forcing from the entire civil aviation fleet. The cirrus clouds made by planes are actually trapping heat 5,000 times greater than the whole aviation fleet's estimate at the IPCC. That matters. And the reason it matters is because as of 2013 right there, aerosol cloud interaction is the main uncertainty in climate research. Not really accounted for in any climate models. Therefore, it's highly unpredictable. Of course, guys like Svensmark say clouds are the main driver of climate change on Earth, and I fully agree with that. It has to do with cosmic ray flux and how galactic cosmic rays form clouds that is regulated by the sun and has very little to do with CO2. This has been proven further by Jasper Kirkby at CERN, who said, after realizing that they could make clouds in a chamber with only pine cones, freaking galactic cosmic rays, and water vapor, they didn't need any soot or sulfuric acid. This is beautiful. It makes me smile. Which means that Earth is not warming up as so much in response to increased greenhouse gases alone. In other words, Earth is less sensitive to greenhouse gases than previously thought. Did he say that out loud? So, and it may warm up less in response to future carbon emissions. Stop your climate change models. We were all wrong. No, they're not going to do that. Back when there were trees, like plenty of trees, there was actually cloudier than they thought. So in their computer models, they basically said it was less cloudy in the past. We were wrong. It was more cloudy in the past because there were bigger trees. I know. Watch Jurassic Park. I mean, anyway. And this quote makes me smile. This really does touch on the Gaia hypothesis. He says, referring to the theory that Earth's life behaves as a single organism that tends to preserve itself. It's a beautiful mechanism for trees to control their environment. And it really is. It makes the Lorax so proud. Trees are very important. We need to plant trees. We had global warming, climate change last. It was called the Dust Bowl. It was the worst climate change the United States has seen in 150 years. And what did we do to fix the Dust Bowl climate change? We planted 220 million trees. It was called the Great Plains Shelter Belt. So I say to every single climate change, boogeyman, global warming kook, if you want to fix global warming and you want to prevent it, plant trees fast and prevent the killing of our old growth forests. Anyway, link, cloud blanket warms up melting ice cap, Climate News Network, Eureka Alert, Greenland ice sheet melts more when it's cloudy, nature.com. Everybody seems to take them seriously. Clouds enhance Greenland ice sheet melt water runoff. Happen. So what people call chemtrails, which are Cirrus clouds, melt poles. Write it down. Tell everybody. So what do you do about that? Well, I went to that EPA thing. I told them to stop making clouds because nobody gives a damn about CO2. You can watch the footage. In less than a year, during the election of Donald Trump, of course, while none of you were watching, I was watching. July 25th, 2016, breaking EPA to limit greenhouse gases from airplanes. So they decided to go ahead and write regulations based on our hearing. But Obama stepped in and wrote, White House releases Federal Alternative Jet Fuel Research and Development Strategy. What the hell is an alternative jet fuel? That is a biofuel. Biofuels. Mandated by Obama. 6 days after the EPA said it was going to regulate the planes, he says biofuels. September 3rd, 2016, China, US, EU pledged support for Global Aviation Emissions Pact, which talks a lot about using biofuels. September 12th, 2016, Greens moved to dismiss EPA lawsuit over airplane emissions. So now that the ICAO wrote its own regulations, decided what it was going to do about it, they threw out the lawsuit and the EPA agreed not to write any laws again because the airline industry will never be regulated. The globalists need their planes to make globalism work. And the globalists like their private planes more than anything. Everybody's heard about the Epstein Express. I'll leave that at that. So why does this matter? Ulrich Schumann said to the ICAO Colloquium on Aviation and Climate Change in 2010, we need to do something about these clouds that are trapping heat and melting the poles, and what we should do is make less warming, more cooling contrails. Okay? Whether this was pollution or program before, when he made that statement, this became predictable for operational planning, which means program, which means geoengineering, which means control. So what is the real plan now? Because pollution or not for 60 years, now that you know it's melting the poles and the airline industry faces massive carbon taxes. Oh, wait, didn't they say that it was 5,000 times greater than all the CO2 that ever came out of a plane? That's bad. I mean, somebody do the math on that carbon tax. That's like more money than the Rothschilds got. So, oh shit, the airline industry is in trouble. You know what might help? A big old chemtrail conspiracy. Yes. Instead of people talking about us melting the poles with our clouds, and how we're fucking up the environment and how it's the most visible climate change in the world because you can't see any other kind of climate change. Can't see plastic in the ocean. Can't see the benzene, xylene, toluene, all that, all the enes in your water. Can't see it. Shit, can't smell half of it. But you can see chemtrails. And I know of at least one dumbass who can smell them. Russ Tanner, you cracked me up. But you can see them. That's why it's a problem. So, of course, there's going to be bots, robots, perception managers, and bullshit psyop, program, on the internet to keep people confused, keep them busy. Talk about, these are orbs. Freaking orbs, man. All these hologram planes. Woo! They're all trying to kill you, don't you know? The chemtrails are killing you. I mean, literally, like you specifically. Put chemicals in there to remove your V2K gene, which is your gene that helps you believe in God. Don't you know? Indigo skyfold. Don't you know that's a thing? It was actually made up by a jackass named the Harp Report, who said literally, a dude on his deathbed told me. And it's literally been posted on every website. InfoWars, been mentioned in 4 documentaries, because people are stupid and they don't follow these things to where they came from, learn all that. So that's why there are so many debunkers, because they feel morally justified. I'm trying to save the world here from idiocy. But in fact, many of them are part of the problem. And this is why, because when I got to the end of the rope, the bottom of the rabbit hole, the ass end of the internet, I interviewed Dr. Rangasai Halthori from the Federal Aviation Administration's Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative. And they are doing something called the Access Flights. And now they're doing the second part of that called ND Max. And at the ND Max, they are testing biofuels for contrail control. I'm not making this crap up. I'll even show you some videos here in a short second. But what he said really startled me. We would like to have more contrail-induced cirrus clouds by day, none by night. What? And I had to think about that for quite a while. Because I asked him specifically, what the hell did Ulrich Schumann mean when he said less warming, more cooling contrails? Scratching my head. His response was, we want clouds by day, none by night. And I was talking to Dr. Renaud Director, one of the guys who said geoengineer, said he would supports the idea behind the NMOD solution I've proposed. And what's up with this? And he really just broke it down for me in a way that I didn't understand before. What they're talking about here is called Earth radiation management, not solar radiation management. Everybody talks about SRM. I've been talking about it for years. Hated it. Don't want anybody spraying chemicals in the sky to create an artificial volcano, which blocks sunlight. Think it's a horrible idea. Do not spray anything in the sky to block the sun. I am firmly against that, and I will make sure that it does not happen. But these pricks say clouds during the day, just not at night. And Dr. Renaud Richter says, hey, that's Earth radiation management, not solar radiation management. So I'm going to break it down for you peoples. Solar radiation management is blocking of sunlight coming into the planet. Okay? It's to keep the heat from ever getting here, reflect it back to space. Earth radiation management deals with heat that is trapped at the surface, returning to space. So during the day-night cycle, at nighttime, heat escapes back into space. Should. Makes sense, right? But if we have a layer in the sky, a blanket, a Venus effect of sulfuric acid clouds mixed with man-made metals, these metal clouds trap heat. So this affects something called the diurnal temperature range, which means how hot it is during the day versus how cold it is at night. If there are lots of clouds at night, it doesn't get as cool as it should. which leads to heating the planet, which leads to melting the poles, which leads to the real question, what is the chemtrail conspiracy for real? And the real question I have is this. If cirrus clouds are melting the poles, who makes them? The fossil fuel industry. How do I know that? Because the jet fuel makes the clouds. And if the jet fuel makes the clouds and the clouds melt the poles, and the people who make jet fuel or fossil fuel guys, what do they want? They want to melt the poles. They have for 100 years. You can read the entire history of that on weathermodificationhistory.com. Just scroll up to the top and get started. It's right there. Reroute warm ocean currents to melt polar ice caps. Fire a cannon to tilt Earth's axis, melt the poles. List goes on. I mean, they wanted to end of iceberg menace. You can't make this shit up. Use space mirrors to focus sunlight and melt the poles. There's that Great Plains shelter belt, 220 million trees. And of course, my favorite, atomize the Arctic. Where's it at? Nuke the Arctic. I mean, they really want to do this. Can we atomize the Arctic? You cannot make this stuff up, guys. So they've been trying for 100 years to melt the poles. And what they said in 1961 in a paper called Climate and Climate Modification Problems and Prospects, that stratospheric water vapor from planes would raise the planet's temperature by 1.5 degrees. And that would melt the poles. So they said that in 1961. What does the IPCC say today? We want to limit the heating to 1.5 to 2 degrees. They're saying the same damn thing. They're just talking to you like you're stupid, because those people are saying the same shit. We want to melt the poles. It's going to take 1.5 degrees to do it. IPCC. We want to limit the heating of the planet to 2 degrees. So you're just saying you want to put a thermostat cutoff on it because we want to stop at melting the poles and go no further because shit could get crazy. Wait, y'all are all saying the same thing. This is the chemtrail conspiracy. Period. That's it in a nutshell. How do you know it? Cirrus clouds, cirrus cloud thinning is one of their solutions to melting the clouds away at night. Not make this shit up. So what's going on is there's a tug of war. On the one side, you have the fossil fuel industry that powers the planes, that makes the clouds, that melts the poles, that make it so the solar industry is screwed. That's a win-win-win. We make jet fuel, we make clouds, clouds melt poles, clouds block solar energy. Now we have a real conspiracy. One that makes fucking sense. Not all that bullshit you're hearing from everybody else. This makes sense. Dollars and cents. So why would they say this then? So imagine my lack of surprise when in July 21st, 2017, I read, if the time and place of seeding is selected with care, the climate effect of cirrus thinning can be enhanced. For that, only long wave warming effect of cirrus clouds should be targeted, and their solar effect should be avoided. They want the long waves to return to space, but the solar effect to be same. Clouds by day, none by night. This can be achieved if seeding is limited to high latitude winters or to nighttime seeding. Source: Ken freaking Caldera, Climate Change and Geoengineering, Artificially Cooling Planet Earth by Thinning Cirrus Clouds, aka the cocktail geoengineering paper that was recently pushed out there. Now, I can show you in 2012 on Ken Caldera's own damn forum where I said to his face, cirrus clouds, shenanigans, and all that. 5 fucking years later, he admits it in his own paper that if we do this, we won't even need to do. If cirrus thinning works, it should be preferred over methods that target changes in solar radiation, such as stratospheric aerosol injections. If we can freaking melt cirrus clouds away, we'll never have to do geoengineering SRM. That's your real conspiracy, people. Put your tinfoil hat on. You're just a chemtard. Nothing to see here. Oh, wait. We're doing everything we can to get rid of these clouds at night, so hopefully we don't have to pay the largest carbon tax in history. Oh, wait. The people who make the jet fuel don't give a shit about any of that. So what's going on is this. It's very simple. You got two sides of the story. Which one's telling the truth? Climatard scientists saying that we want to make the climate impact of this less. So we're just trying to control these chemtrails, these cirrus clouds, through the use of jet fuel. Is that what we're doing here? Or are the people who make the jet fuel going, screw you guys, we like our clouds melting poles because we want to get to that oil and gas? Proof's in the pudding. You can look all through their paperwork. The Angels proposal: Arctic natural gas extraction, liquefaction, and sales. Comes straight out of the Arctic Methane Emergency Group, AMEG.me, AMEG.me. And this group basically says the whole world's going to die from runaway global warming, so we need to frack the North Pole to get the methane out before we all die, like the dinosaur farts caused back in the day. It's called the Clathrate gun hypothesis. Is what all this is built on, the methane doom thing, including all the lunacy that Dane Wigington talks about with methane. It's based on what AMEG says. So it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit to cover for the fact that we are in a new Cold War. Got to show that article. New Cold War. There you go. Good. We are in a new Cold War. Mother freaking excellent article on The Guardian. The new Cold War. I hope you all will check it out, because guess what? While everybody talks about saving the Arctic, this is that Arctic oil and gas they really want. 150 billion tons of carbon dioxide. And even though they don't even care. Let's get up there and frack that shit fast as possible. Now, America's already fracked the entire northern slope of Alaska. Got a nice little map of that somewhere up here. You can come to add data, go to the fossil fuel section, and go to fracking Alaska. And you can see these are fracking wells on the north slope of Alaska. Come up here, hit up the satellite view. I ain't bullshitting. See them? Those are the fracking wells. Fracking wells. Fracking well. Each one of these little pads is a fracking well. There are lots of them. Kuparuk River Unit 3K9. Anyway, some of these are sharper than others. Obviously, there we go. Ah, beautiful. See? Fracked. So they're just lying to you, because they've been fracking the north slope of Alaska for quite some time. This is part of what has been dubbed the new Cold War. And it's all about that oil, period. So back to the story. And one moment while I wet my whistle. So this is cirrus cloud seeding. Came up, Trude Storyevmo. She gave this speech in 2015 at the last weather modification conference, not the one I went to, the one in 2015. And her paper was called On the Climate Response to Cirrus Cloud Seeding. She called it Thermal Radiation Management, TRM, not ERM. But regardless, Seating via commercial airliners? Question mark. We could just put bismuth triiodide in the jet fuel. Spray it out. Seating aerosol residence time is relatively short in the troposphere, so it's going to rain down on your head pretty quickly. Gotta love that. Drawback, does not address ocean acidification issue because we're going to make a shitload of sulfuric acid. Oh, we call that acid rain. But you're not allowed to say the words acid rain anymore because CO2 is so damn cool. Yeah, everything in climate change makes me want to punch somebody in the face. So references down here at the bottom. Final paper. We're going to do this, and then we're going to go right to how does it work? Because this is going to freak you guys out. FAA scientists, we want clouds by day, none by night. I'm just going to quickly go through this. At the top here, I've got some questions and answers. I hope you guys will check them out. They're really helpful. Clouds are intentionally being created. There is no way to prove or disprove this statement. Therefore, I avoid this trap. Up to now, because now when you have a guy saying we want to make clouds by day, none by night, that changes everything. So this is what debunkers say. Contrails are just condensation, harmless water vapor. Response. Condensating on what? Answer. Cloud seeds or aerosols like soot and metal nanoparticles. That matters a lot. So everything's a game. Everything's a semantic game. They're always screwing with you. But if you don't know these facts, you're going to be doomed to repeat history. Did you know that they were sued for chemtrails in 1972? What we have here is a series of pictures. Mystery of the Point Augusta Sky Trails, 1948. Entire sky blanketed in clouds. Plain Vapor Trails, 1951. Covered in the sky. 1958. Jet Trails, Dim Sun, Palm Springs Gripes. The contrails are not disappearing, but breaking down into a haze and creating a cloud-like appearance in the sky. The Air Force is so far flabbergasted. So, long history of clouds making the sun go bye-bye. 1958 as well. New fuss raised over jet trails. Yep. So, if you don't know the history, we might have a problem with some of this. So I started looking into it, and nobody will talk about this one. Yes, the condensation can be turned on and off. AZ voice, I'm about to show you how that works. Buckle your seatbelts. I have 3 patents proving this. You're not going to hear this anywhere else, guys. U.S. to clamp down on jet pollution. This is 1970. It's a monumentally important paper here. The government will tell the nation's 43 commercial airlines Tuesday that they must end pollution of the skies with jet engine smoke. Damn semantics. Damn semantics. The government will tell the nation's 43 commercial airlines Tuesday that they must end chemtrails by 1972 or face punitive legislation from Congress. I'm going to read it one more time. The government says they're going to tell all 43 of them they got to end Cirrus cloud creation by 1972 or face punitive legislation from Congress. They called it smoke pollution of the sky. So back in 1972, the state of New Jersey and Illinois sued the airline industry for blocking the sun over their states. This is history you will not hear anywhere else. My God. The smoke that pours from jet engines is caused by incomplete fuel burning in the standard combustor. The redesigned combustor eliminates smoke plumes almost completely, federal specialists say. So they said they were going to install burner cans on all the jets, and that would reduce particulate emissions from planes by 70%. What are particulate emissions, everybody? Let's do the list. Dust, aerosols, cloud seeds, cloud condensation nuclei, ice nucleating particles. It's mostly soot with metal in it. Soot covered in sulfuric acid, filled with metal nanoparticles. That is the cloud seed that comes out of planes, that has since they started flying them, that makes clouds, that puts metal in the air, that makes carbon black dust that goes to 18 kilometers, destroys the ozone layer, affects monsoons worldwide, and makes clouds that trap heat and melt the poles. All wrapped in one little booger called soot. Pretty nasty stuff. And by the way, David Keith, geoengineer, has a paper called Photophoretic Levitation, Self-Levitation of Carbon Black Soot. The United States military, in their weaponized weather FOIAs that I have, talk specifically about using carbon black soot. Gray et al. And Project Storm Fury, wind steering hurricanes, what's their weapon of choice? Carbon black soot. In the Owning the Weather papers, in Owning the Weather in 2025, what do they say they were going to have ready by 2005 for a weapon system to be developed by the DoD? Carbon black soot. I have papers going from the U.S. Navy creating clouds with carbon black soot, liquid and dry forms, to everything and anything in between. J. Marvin Herndon, when desperately looking for a coal ash real link, I gave him 25 links on carbon black soot and one on bunker fuel in ship tracks that leads to carbon black soot and coal ash in marine stratocumulus. What did he do? He took the one paper on coal ash coming out of ship tracks and ran with it and ignored all the other 25 references. I cannot help these people. Shit. But regardless, you've seen it here. They were sued by 2 states. The reason why is in this article. Here's another one dated the same time, January 21st, 1970. Illinois and New Jersey officials say they will not settle pollution suits against the nation's major airlines out of court, despite Tuesday's agreement between the airlines and the federal government to clean up jet aircraft exhaust. Representatives of 31 major domestic airlines agreed to install burner cans to eliminate most of the smoke from their nearly 1,000 jet aircraft by 1972. It's going to cost them 13 to 15 million, and airline officials indicate that they could probably absorb this expense without an immediate fare increase. We expect to get this agreement written into enforceable court order, said Richard D. Sullivan, director of the New Jersey's Division of Clean Air and Water. So it gets real crazy. This is where it gets real crazy. So what happened as a result of that? They said they were going to put the burner cans on the planes and the little clouds to go away. Who sued? New Jersey and Illinois. Illinois, Chicago, Illinois. You mean like this? Canberra Times, October 1981. From Chicago, jet vapor trails altering the climate over Chicago. Damn. Morning and evening, the sky will be covered by a cloud shield from jet contrails. That's less than 10 years later, guys. And there it is. Morning and night, covered by jet contrails, making cirrus clouds. This shit has been going on forever. That's the thing. That's the secret. The airline industry has been blocking out the sun and making cirrus clouds that have been melting away at the poles for 60 freaking years. When they were sued by 2 states, nothing happened. 10 years later, in the same damn state that sued, nothing's happened. So guess what they did? Dr. Chagnon and all these boys at the University of Illinois actually came up with an entire division that is devoted specifically to studying chemtrails, cirrus cloud creation. The name of it's slipping my mind right now. It's like the cloud and aerosol. I'll find and I'll post a link in the video details. But regardless, at the University of Illinois, there is a specific section that has been studying smoke pollution of the sky, contrails, jet vapor trails, every term that's come up along the way for the same damn problem. It's all semantics, people. And the semantics are to keep there. My favorite one right there is artificial cloud. And there you go. Because the artificial cloud cover restricts the amount of sunshine, it makes days cooler in the summer and autumn when jet contrails are most prevalent. And that was the predominant thought for the longest time. This is 1981. At the same time, it moderates extremes in temperature. While days tend to be cooler, nights are slightly warmer because the cloud blanket keeps in more of the heat escaping. 1981. So, known this for a long time. To what extent, they don't know. Try to play stupid, but at the end of the day, whoa, right? Whoa. So, they sued, nothing happened, nothing changed. Typical. I mean, that's just typical. So, that's why I'm showing you this. And make sure we all know what's going on here. So, here's NBC News, 1980. Jet contrails. Unlike most changes to the atmosphere caused by man, this one is beneficial, said Richard Simonin from the Illinois Institute of Natural Resources. That's where they're doing the studies I was telling you about just a second. No one's trying to make clouds today, now, using jet engines. Of course, they're going to emphasize that. They're not trying to make clouds now, but shit, we've been doing it for 40 years just fine. So why try now, right? We got that down. But this study suggests that jet travel is inadvertently, hate that word, making our days more cloudy, and someday weather researchers may be able to use jets on purpose to change our weather. Yeah, 1980 something. And then, of course, in 9/11, they grounded all the flights, and George Bush was hauling ass back to D.C., escorted by 2 F-16s. So they saw these chemtrails leaving shadows on the ground via satellite. And that's where the original quote came up about the diurnal temperature range. And they're like, oh, crap. You know, I think we're actually screwing with the heat at night, and this may be bad. Sky graffiti warming up Earth 2006 on CBS News. Now you see that the narrative is beginning to change. New research suggests that jet exhaust is 4 times better at trapping heat than ground emissions, with contrails playing a critical role. Contrails form at high altitudes, and the hot jet engine pass through blah, blah, blah. Clouds spread out, trapping heat. It rises from the surface. Video of that blanket right there. And this is all the heat underneath. So now even CBS News is going, damn, we're heating the whole freaking planet up. Then, same thing happened, but this time it happened over in Europe. And all flights were grounded because of a volcano. And the ash cloud mixing with the jet exhaust made these cirrus clouds from 1E3 AWACS. That's the plane with the big radar on the back. Right here, you can see the circles at first. If you look very closely, let me zoom in on that. Right here, at the very beginning of this, you're going to see the spiral. That spiral turns into all that haze, damn near covers the whole island. Look at that. That's one plane almost covered an island. So then, when they did the observations on this one, that's where the quotes about the 5,000 times come from. Was from that science paper. Forcing some 5,000 times greater than the entire civil aviation fleet. This study emphasizes the need to establish whether similar events are common or highly unusual for confident assessment of the total climate effect of aviation to be made. Ooh, somebody's in deep doo-doo. Deep doo-doo. So that led to this. Grounded. How the ICAO failed to tackle aviation and climate change, and what should happen now. This is transportationenvironment.org, ICAO grounded 2010 during the ICAO's colloquium on contrail mitigation. So in 2010, the International Civil Aviation Organization, that volcano you just saw, said, do you realize how much we're going to pay in carbon taxes? Do you know how screwed we are? We're in deep doo-doo, people. They're going to ground all our flights if they ever figure this out. Except they forgot that climate scientists and globalists alike need their planes to do their globalism. So they got to keep you busy. They got to keep you bullshitted. And that way they can continue to make clouds all day long and hopefully none by night. Simultaneously, NOAA, Earth System Research Lab, scratching their head like a bunch of jackasses, say stratospheric aerosol increased surprisingly rapidly in that time, almost doubling during the decade. The increase in aerosol since 2000 implies a cooling effect. So let me get this straight. From 2000 to 2010, there was a massive increase in stratospheric aerosols, and we think that's cooling the planet. When, in fact, if you guys have followed my research, you can read all about the NATO single fuel concept. It went from 1988 to 1996. 1997 was when they were complete, and they switched every NATO plane from gasoline to diesel fuel. When they did that, might as well show you guys. Let me come up here. I'm going to click on geoengineering. On my geoengineering page, I'm going to scroll down to right here past the fact to right here where it says contrail induced cirrus. Click on that. Scroll over here. It scrolls to the metal section. Filled metals. That's got to be it. There you go. When they did that, Jet A, JP5 is what they were flying. 2,100 parts per billion of aluminum in that jet fuel. When they switched every plane in NATO worldwide from gas to diesel, aluminum tripled. It went from 2,100 to 9,300 parts per billion. Calcium, 5,000 parts per billion to 31,000 parts per billion. Conveniently, David Keith switched from saying, hey, let's geoengineer using metals to geoengineering using calcium. Coincidence? I don't think so. Down here, strontium went from 70 to 351. Titanium, 35 to 1,056. So my response to the people who were scratching their heads about where all these aerosols came from, it came from the change in the jet fuel and the fact that military planes typically fly higher than all the other planes, and that there's an assload of aluminum, barium, strontium, calcium, vanadium, metals everywhere up there in the stratosphere. Facts. After all that data was analyzed, the increase in temperature, that suggests that contrails cool the planet. BBC says, fake news, fake news. So this has been going on for quite some time. People are very confused. And then here is my interview with Dr. Rangasali Halthori, and you can read it, where I basically grill him on all this, and he says, well, I mean, we want to make clouds by day, none by night. What do you want to do about that? You know? Shit. That's what we're doing. And then all of the references you could shake a stick at down here at the bottom, scroll through those. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because it's fuel sulfur content geoengineering. Basically, what they're doing is they're going to use 2 jet fuels in 1 tank. Don't believe me. You're going to be wrong every time. Over here on weathermodificationhistory.com, world's most accurate, most all-inclusive, most. Come over here to the sidebar, click on doped jet fuel. This is your tag. It will take you home to Mecca, and you can go through the whole history of what I've showed you in this video, and then some, just the references. So what's going on? They want to use high fuel sulfur content at aviation cruise altitude combined with ultra low sulfur jet fuel, biofuel on takeoff. Why would they do that? And how the hell would they do that? That's confusing. So I put translation. Use biofuels on takeoff, create less carbon black dust, soot around airports, kill less people. Why would I say that? I guess I'll show you. Over here on ClimateViewer.com, tags artificial clouds. Click that thing. What you're going to see right about here is that there's my speech. Plane exhaust kills more people than plane crashes. On the page before that, most recent, black carbon from aircraft exhaust is destroying ozone, melting poles. This was the Indian Space Organization just back in October finding out some craze about this. All in the artificial cloud section. Please dig into that. So, kill less people around airports by making less soot on the ground, but then use high sulfur jet fuel at altitude, mimic the Pinatubo effect to do stratospheric sulfur injection for solar radiation management purposes. Self-levitating soot, photophoretic, carries sulfur into the stratosphere, destroys ozone layer, affects rain, monsoons worldwide. Photophoretic levitation could loft particles above the stratosphere, reducing their capacity to interfere with ozone chemistry. Could loft particles above the stratosphere. Right. It has to go through the ozone layer to get there. So, it could only derive emissions from aviation fuel were the cause of what they say. They now have evidence that such particles existing up to 18 kilometers in the stratosphere, and there are about in every cubic centimeter of black carbon that came from jet aircraft. So, planes make carbon black soot. The sun heats it. It goes up, carries metals up, carries sulfuric acid up. That is stratospheric sulfur injections. That is what David Keith was talking about. That's how it works. Proven. I love it. So, determining a resulting fuel composition for use by the machine in the ambient air condition to achieve the characteristic where the resultant fuel composition includes at least one of the first and second fuel compositions. What am I talking about here? Patents? Patents for 2 jet fuels in 1 tank? Percentage of at least one of the first fuel composition and second fuel composition required to produce a resultant fuel composition, which allows for vapor trail production. That's really small. Can you guys even read that? There we go. That's much better. Oh, hell, let's just show them the pictures. So here they are. Fuel system for vapor trail control. U.S. patent 9518965B2. Hope you're taking notes. This is recorded. Oh, wait. The notes are in the video. They're also on weathermodificationhistory.com. This patent is showing a sensor on the back of the wingtips that monitors the clouds that are created and uses an electronic control unit inside the jet fuel tank to mix 2 types of fuels to make the type of clouds that they want, which answers your question, AZ Voice. How do you turn it off and on? You do it with a fuel delivery system. Here's another one. Patent application 21013-034. 0834, showing ice supersaturated regions, how they want to avoid them if they don't want to make clouds. If they do want to make clouds, they fly directly into them shits and flip the fucking switch on the ECU and they've got clouds. On and off, on and off. Going to the last one. This one's my favorite. Control unit and method for controlling the supply of a vehicle with multiple fuels. Jet Fuel Electronic Control Unit, ECU, showing 2 jet fuels, 1 JP8 doped with sulfur, 1 biofuel. All same tank, controlled by ECU. What does this mean? This means that the FAA's next gen transportation system, which has a kit in it called the Aviation Environmental Design Toolkit can, from remote, control the plane's ability to create clouds. That the pilot does not have to know a thing. And that's just a fact. Oh, there's me. We can't watch a video while we're watching a video. I'm making a video. Anyway, there's that photo there. Let me bring that thing up. I got it somewhere over here in my little thing. No, it's over here. Yes. Dope. There and this. So I made this infographic combining all these together. What you can see here is dope jet fuel geoengineering. That's what we calls it. That's how it works. That's the future. That's their plan. Deploying by plane, running on dirty, high sulfur fuel at cruising altitude, airplanes could add plenty of SO2 to the stratosphere. Sulfur dioxide, sulfuric acid, acid rain. So putting massive amounts of sulfur into a plane would cause this. Dr. Rangasai Halthori and the guys at the Access flights tested exactly that. They tested biofuels. They tested JP8 doped with sulfur. Right now at the ND Max, they're doing the same thing over Germany. It is the FAA, the Germans DLR, and NASA. They are testing 2 jet fuels, biofuels, sulfur doped fuel. And the plan is kill less people around airports, but still cool the planet, make clouds by day, none by night. Melt clouds at night with cirrus cloud thinning or seeding. I even saw one called laser ice multiplication, which is basically using a laser to shoot the crystals in the clouds to make them smaller so that they are thinner, so that heat can escape, but it still cools the planet. At the center of all of this is cirrus clouds. The control of cirrus clouds is important for the airline industry to get out from under their carbon tax. Important for the fossil fuel industry because they can melt poles and kill the solar industry. And it's important for the geoengineers because it's a mechanism for delivery of their crap, which has already been in operation for 70 years. So this is your real chemtrail conspiracy. It's all about the jet fuel. And anybody tells you not to look into it, they're intentionally trying to bury the truth. Don't let them bury this. That's why I did this video today. I want you guys to understand exactly where I'm coming from, why I come from there, and what you can do about it, because it's important. More details on weather modification history, contrail cirrus cloud seeding and thinning. Read all about it. Check out the links. It's bad. This is where we're at. These are the solutions they have proposed. I've got videos, 2 videos right there for you to watch. Actually, 1 video, 1 picture. But this is the True Story Elmo one from the last one. So, what do we learn here today? Trolls are stupid. Pretty damn stupid. Let's see. Probably got a whole bunch of responses from them now this video has gone live because, you know, they're just going to be mad. I love this one. Straight out of Oxygen. It's brilliant. Brilliant. But guys, don't let the trolls get you down. Have fun with them. 43 new notifications. I'm going to respond to those just as soon as I shut this video off. But this has been an epic video teaching you all about how to get from just chemtrail conspiratard land to I'm an activist. I understand what the fuck I'm talking about. I can say it in public without being mocked. And I'm effective at what I do. Now, up here on the screen, this is HARP. What does HARP have to do with anything I just said? Not much. But I did have a doctor from MIT pose the idea that HARP is punching holes in the ionosphere, which is leading to an artificial cooling of the planet, which caused the pause, which is why we're not heating up more than we should be. Oh, wait, that was invented by Atlantic Richfield. Oh, wait, that's an oil company too. Oh, damn, Bernard Eastland was talking about shooting methane from the North Pole to America. So what does HARP have to do with any of this? In Margaret Cheney's book about Tesla, she said that they were going to create an artificial electric pipeline in the sky where they could turn methane from the North Pole into electricity, shoot it through the Van Allen belts, and catch it anywhere in the world. Catch it on an aircraft carrier, power a aircraft carrier with that electricity, shoot it to satellites, shoot it to the International Space Station, shoot it down to America and collect that electricity, an electric pipeline in the sky. All about that oil, the new Cold War, and how there really is a big fight between two camps, or the appearance of a fight. I don't even think it's a fight. I think that all of these geoengineering climate scientists, punks, including MIT's Climate X, which apparently is completely funded by fossil fuel guys. Every time I lift the cover up, I realize it's fossil fuel funding fake climate activists. So if there is anybody who truly cares about the North Pole, then they are the people who are trying to put an end to the chemtrails, trying to get rid of the cirrus clouds, because we know that they are melting those poles. I just don't believe it, because history shows that they don't want to stop doing it, despite what they're saying. So everybody wants to melt the poles, biofuels for contrail control. And it's in the jet fuel. And I really understand that history is a thing that, you know, the Army Chemical Corps, they did all this stuff, that things like F-oxysporum happening today, porous glass balls happening today, you know, molds, funguses, gay bombs, all that stuff is happening today. Do I believe all of that is coming from Delta Airlines? I personally don't. Write it down. Tell these dumbasses that I'm just being completely freaking honest with you. I try to deal with cloud creation in a pragmatic way based on the preponderance of evidence. And that tells me, look at the jet fuel, look at the North Pole, look at the history. It's about dope and jet fuel. If you look at these patents are from Airbus and Rolls-Royce. Okay? These are jet engine manufacturers talking about how they can control the clouds they're creating. This is not all of this evidence. When you pile it all up, points to the same facts. They want to melt the poles. They have for quite some time. It's called dope jet fuel. And the sooner you guys start reading into that, the sooner we will all collectively be able to do something about it effectively. So running around calling it chemtrails, not so effective. Why do I do it? Because I'm trying to engage with people who are confused. I'm trying to pull their head out of their ass, arm them with the truth, and say, go get them, Tiger. I'm the only person who does that I know of. And I've been seeing, at least in the last 2 years, I see a change. I see a willingness for people to truly understand and do something about this. That also is a good thing. When I did my hearing, the EPA, and I gave that speech, I told my wife, I wish I hadn't, it was 2015. I said, it's going to take 3 years before anybody understands what the fuck I did here. And it's true. Because guess what? In the last 2 months, I've had so many people contact me over this, going, why could I not see this? And I'm like, because your head was stuck in the clouds, brother. Now, for me personally, I try to approach everything from a non-slave speak, kind of low common denominator, low descriptor value, so that you can understand not only what I'm trying to tell you about this stuff, but the language and the manipulations that occur in the language. When you understand that there's a lot of manipulation in the language regarding this stuff, everybody wants to say, oh, so you're saying it's all that. No, nothing is ever all or never. There's always many causes for any one particular thing. So what I'm trying to do is piece it all out, put it all there, make sense of it. And what I see from my speech to today is that there is certainly a plan, and that plan is summed up in we want clouds by day, none by night. And how are we going to achieve that? They're going to try everything in the book to try to figure it out. Me personally, I live in Sumter, South Carolina. My wife and I have both seen the same phenomena. We already have clouds by day, none by night. At least for the last year, I'm going to be setting up my GoPro to do some time lapses of it because it's just phenomenal to watch. But basically, you've all seen it. Planes roll out in the morning, whole damn sky goes to shit, can't see anything till the evening, starts to thin out about the time the sun starts going down, magically stars out all fucking night long. So maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's just where I live and I'm in Shangri-La where the clouds just magically melt away at night next to a bombing range and an Air Force base and airport. So very curious indeed. But maybe you've noticed the same thing. Maybe you've noticed the exact opposite. Maybe you live under a chemtrail highway that's set up by the next gen transportation system. I don't know your personal situation, but I do know that I tend to watch it all on ClimateViewer 3D. I come over here to the satellite section and dig into there. So NASA Gibbs, do this, click this, boom. And I go and I look at the satellites and I kind of watch what's going on. So I hope you will too. There's a lot of information in this video. It's very lengthy. I can promise you that you can watch What in the World Are They Spraying? Why in the World Are They Spraying? And the third one that was never even made. And you will not learn half of the shit I told you today. The stuff I'm doing today, I'm doing it just to get the facts out there, get it all in one nice little bow. And I'm going to be writing this up in several different ways. Like I said, it's going to appear in Sunless magazine. Probably shortly thereafter, I'll post it on ClimateViewer.com. I am still working on the documentary from the film footage that we took at the AMS. That will be coming out when it is perfect. That's the way it's going to be, because I have one opportunity to put this in one good narrative, and it cannot be long-winded like this video was. I want it to be short and succinct and to the point and make the strongest case for what we're doing here. So that's going to be, I'm going to put more work into that than anything I've ever done. Expect that. So guys, I really appreciate you hanging out with me in chat. I've seen a lot of good things that I would have loved to dive into. What I'm hoping to do in the near future, I am moving right now. Kind of crazy story. Watch my last video if you guys want to know about it. But what I plan to do in the near future is either have a radio show where I can do call-ins or figure out some way that I can interact directly with you here. Maybe you guys can jump in the Hangout. Last time every time I've tried that, few people have Hangouts. But I would literally open it up to anybody because I really want to, deal with some of the questions that everybody has, because maybe you're going to ask me a question a different way than I pose it normally. And in doing that, it'll answer a lot of people's, biggest concerns maybe that I haven't addressed. Maybe it'll spur me to research in a different direction. And that would be a good thing too. But I definitely want to have that conversation because I don't fear, challenges. Like I actually live for that shit. These fool trolls, honestly, have taught me more about this than anything else. Because in their challenges comes, the personal challenge to myself. Do I just take it at face value? Do I see if there's any truth to it? Well, you know what? The guy actually made a good point. That does kind of sound stupid, what I wrote. Let me go look into that a little more. Maybe global dimming isn't a thing. I mean, this over here says that, and this says that. Who knows? Maybe I shouldn't use that term. It's a stupid term. I don't know. You always have to question yourself. And the day we all agree is the day we could all be wrong. Favorite saying in the world. So y'all remember that one. The day we all agree is the day we could all be wrong. Shout out to Stone Lee. You are a wizard. from another mister up in Canada. Great show. Glad I did this. Old Twitter trolls gave it a little push because I always have fun with them. And I appreciate you guys. We'll have to dig into all this in just a moment. So, going to get back to responding to fools on the internet because I'm blowing off steam today. And do or do not. There is no try. Yoda's a pretty smart guy. Wait, it's not a guy. Anyway, guys, love you, mean it. Lots to dig into here. Please, pick through this, understand it. Go harass somebody who harassed you with this information. I got an email today from somebody who said, I had a friend who for years has just been like, you're an idiot for posting all these photos. And because of your research, I converted them. And not only did I convert them, they donated to your trip to the AMS thing. So, they were like one person at a time. That's how we do it, guys. One person at a time. We will change the world. Never doubt that a small group of individuals can change the world. In fact, they are the only thing that ever did. So, with that being said, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.